Hey, it's Rob. Welcome to Axel's Garage. All right, we're out here with Wanda. Now, we're actually making this video before we even announce who Wanda is, but we're not going to upload it until you actually know who Wanda is. So you guys know who Wanda is. It's our second twin 2000 Jeep XJ, and when we bought it, the car was sitting for over a year on a Brooklyn street, and the rotors were completely, rusted solid. And when we started driving it, we were getting some brake noise, and I figured that was just the rust wearing off. Well, we drove it all the way home, about 30 miles, drove around town a little bit at home, not much, just a little bit around the blocks a couple times, and that noise hasn't gone away. And the guy we bought it from, he had two spare parts for this vehicle. He had a brand new starter, and it turns out it needs a starter, and he had a brand new set of front brake pads. So I'm guessing that the pads were going maybe, and he just never got around to having someone install them, because he didn't do any work himself on this. He only did work when work was needed, apparently. I think it was a little neglected. Something had to break before it got fixed, so there was no real preventative maintenance. So that's number one, is I need to get it inspected, and safety wise, this thing doesn't feel safe to drive at all. It stops, but it's rough stopping. So we're going to pull the front wheels off. We're going to take a look at the pads, see what's going on there while I got it up in the air. The other issue that we know about, and I don't know if it's not a huge concern to me, but we do have a little, and it's windy, so if there's a little shaky camera, it's windy. We do have a low oil pressure condition, according to the gauge on the dash, once the engine's warmed up, so once that oil gets hot. Again, I don't know how old that oil is. It's completely black. We did put a quart in because it was a quart low, and we put in 5 ounces of seafoam. Try to clean it out. We've run it for a total of I would guess about a half hour or so, 2 or 3 warm-ups to get that seafoam in there, and we went to the gas station, put some fuel in it, and hopefully that seafoam maybe cleared up some of the gunk that's in there. There's a real cheap oil filter on there. It looks like it's been on there for years. So while we're under it, we're going to change the oil, and we're going to take a look at the brakes. So let me get Wanda up in the air, and I'll show you what we find. All right, well, I was talking to the camera, and the camera wasn't recording. So I don't know at what point I either hit the button, or thought I hit the button, or the camera just glitched itself, but it wasn't recording. So if I'm repeating something, excuse me. All right, wheel did not want to come off with the regular duty or the stubby impact that I normally use. So we had to take it off with the big Mama Jamma, the big giant Milwaukee, and that got it off. Studs, I mean, everything just rusted. New York City sitting on the street, they brine and salt like crazy. The threat of any icing condition all over. So this thing's sitting on the street, it's getting sprayed constantly with the plow trucks. So we pulled the wheel off. Face of the rotor looked good, nice. It's a cross-drilled and slotted rotor. And then I go and I feel around on the backside, and it's all grooved up like crazy. So when we take the caliper off, we got a ripped boot, but it seems to still be sealed on an inner groove. And the pads, the outer pad was down to almost the metal. There was a little bit left on it. The inner pad completely thrashed all the way down to the metal. The outer pad had a hair left on it. So meantime, I had to go find a C-clip, which I must have a bunch of my big C-clips holding something up, because I can't seem to find them. So they got to be holding something up and out of the way, and I don't remember where I put them. Anyway, I popped the drain plug on the oil, let that drain out good while we're doing this, and I'm going to come back over here. You can't, on these calipers, you can't get right behind the directly behind the piston, because that's where the brake hose goes on to. So you gotta kind of do the best you can. Unless you got a really big C-clamp, I'm using a 4-inch, and that doesn't make it. Like I said, my bigger ones, I can't even find them anywhere. So I'm gonna try to come in like this and see if I can get it to stay there. See how easy this piston goes back in.
That
I have a feeling this is going to be a fight. That piston is out an awful long way. Alright, so after getting the piston pushed in all the way, it was a little bit of a fight because the C-clamp, 4-inch C-clamp really isn't big enough when the piston's out that far. So I put it back on the bracket, tried prying with a pry bar a little bit against the caliper bracket in the rotor, and that got it started. Once it started moving, the C-clamp actually went pretty easy. So before I go take the other side apart, I'm going to spray both sets of pads down on the backside with some disc brake quiet. Nothing is going to matter with these shoot-up rotors, but we're here, might as well. All right, so I took apart the other side. The other side, the pads were like brand new. This one, they're wiped out just on the inside, so the caliper's probably not releasing, or it's just on the inside, so there's also suspect to your caliper sliders, and these were like really stuck in there. They didn't move as freely as the other side. The other side moves nice and freely. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take these, I'm just going to clean them off. Clean the old dirty grease out. And see if I have any signs of like galling on them or wear. And there's a little bit. They're not gouged. Well, they are a little bit. Yeah, there are some signs. So what I'm going to do is lube them up real good, and hopefully that will help the problem. I'm using ceramic brake parts lube. I'll link it in the description below. And with any luck, these things will slide nice, and we're going to wind up replacing this caliper anyway, but at least it'll tell us whether it was the piston that's getting stuck, which didn't feel the best either, or it's the or is it these sliders that weren't lubed. Normally I wouldn't clean the old lube off, I would just add some lube on top, but I wanted to see what kind of condition they were in, because that might point you in the right direction of why they're, why you're having an issue. And what I'll do is I'll take a little bit of this lube on my finger, and I'll just put it over where the brake pads slide. If you don't have brake parts lube, you could always use white lithium grease and a little acid brush, and I use that for all my, those of you who've been watching for a while know I use that on all my nuts and bolts. All right, put a little lube and on your nuts and bolts. Why? You want to make it easier for the next guy, because the next guy might very well be you. And in this case, I know the next guy is going to be me. So, alright, so now I can go grab my pads, pop them in here, and we'll get this rolling. Alright, so I got an inside and an outside pad. I got my anti-squeal sprayed on it, which I don't think is really necessary for this application, but alright, so we got our pads in. Flap our rotor back down. I'm putting a little lube here on the caliper bracket. The pad does slide on the bracket, so a little bit of lube there can't hurt. Alright, then we got our 2 caliper bolts, and just like anything else, I'm going to take some white lube and I'm going to put them on the bolts, and I want to put it on the shank of the bolt as well, because the shank can seize up inside the slider that I lubricated on the outside. Well, we want to make sure that the shank doesn't seize up inside that slider at all. So, and the lube on the threads is just so that we're making it nice for the next guy, so they don't rust in there. Listen, I haven't had Jeeps for a lot of years, but what I have learned in the time that I've had them is that besides money, your best friend is never sees white lithium grease and penetrating oil, because they just seem to need it all the time. Now I'll tighten up my caliper bolts. Then I'm going to repeat the process on the other side. You can see on the floor I missed taking the oil filter off, so I got a little bit of Exxon Valdez going on. Now, like I said, your best friend's penetrating oil, buy by the gallon. When I bought these 2 old Jeeps, and it comes with a spray bottle. I'm going to use this opportunity to spray all this shit down, because everything's getting replaced and it's going to eventually get torn out, and I'm sure that we're going to have problems. So while I'm in here, I'll get the bleeder on the caliper. I'm going to get the brake hose, top of the brake hose in the frame rail. Anywhere there is a bolt, anywhere there are threads for anything, is going to get sprayed with penetrating oil. Get this wheel on, spray a little on there too, and then on the lug studs, we'll go with some white grease. You know, New York winters aren't bad because of the weather. They're bad because of the resources. Because they just use so much salt on everything. That's what destroys the cars. It's not that our winters are so severe. It's that it's such a populated place. They want to keep everything going during snowstorms. So they brine and they salt the shit out of everything, which just destroys everything with rust. So we're going to put some white grease to give everything a nice little lube. Alright, and I'm going to reach under. I'll do a little more spraying with the PB Blast, so we'll get the other side together.